is Stephanie Pereira, and today I'll be doing a presentation on the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Plague. This is my table of contents, and it shows what I'm going to be talking about today. Each slide has a different title. Some of them will be put together. And the bubonic plague is an infectious disease that spread mostly to humans by infected fleas and rats. It was first known around during I think it was the 13th century, and so people were on trading boats and rats were on there, and they used to bite the humans, and the rats got it from the fleas. It's an infectious disease, so that's how it spread around all throughout Europe and Asia. The plague was caused by a certain bacteria called Yersinia pestis, which traveled mostly to fleas and rats, and it was extremely fatal. Like, most of the people who had it died instantly. The first person who discovered the bacteria was a French biologist named Alexandre Yersin. He named the bacteria after himself. He did most of his research in Hong Kong. Most of the plague spreads through the bacteria through the bite of the flea, which gets into your blood. Within treatment could kill you within 2 hours. A lot of people thought the Black Plague was spread at a rate of 1 mile each day. A lot of the people thought that it would spread very easy, so they locked inside their houses. They did not have much knowledge about the Black Plague, so they just hid themselves, kind of quarantined, as we did in COVID. It's been said to be traveled from 30 to 100, which is faster than any other bubonic plague in the 20th century. In the beginning of the plague, people started to lock their doors, as I said earlier, to protect themselves. And they'll also bring flowers for the dead, as in, you know the song, everybody knows the song Ring Around a Rosie, the song where kids jump around. That song was based on this plague, and the reason that what they'll say, pockets full of posies, so the plague doctors, as we'll talk about later, because there was so much death, so they put posies, the flowers, right next to each dead person, that way so the city doesn't get filled with the smell of death, because no one likes that. As you can see here, this is the map of where the plague has started and how it moved all across Europe. It first came to Europe around October 1347, and it spread, as I said, all around Europe over the next few centuries. As I said earlier, it spread around through bites, and the rats were mostly found on ships, and it was mostly through travelers from trading companies. And the infectious disease is a zoonotic disease. It spreads from animals to humans and spread through saliva, for example, bites, and etc. And does the plague still exist? So it still exists. Every year we get around 10 cases in the U.S. So as I said here, 7 to 10 cases in the U.S. And it affects from teenagers as young as 16 to as old as 45 years old. A lot of it has been spotted in this area, California, Nevada, and this area over here, and as I said, New Mexico, Colorado, and it's been exposed, especially internationally, more in the Europe area. These are the symptoms of having the plague: is high fever, feeling of chills, having pain in certain areas, abdomen, legs, and arms, big swollen black lumps. It kind of looks like a big bruise. It's all black under, and it has a bunch of black spots, and it makes it a bunch of swelling. And sometimes, as I said, it turns black around the arms or legs, or have trouble breathing or coughing up blood. The Black Plague time period has been around for a very long time, as I think it was before the 13th century, and before that, it has the most effect in the 14th and part of the 15th century. Along with other diseases throughout Europe, the population has decreased insanely because the plague was extremely fatal, and it has an insanely amount through the early modern period. As you can see here, you can see how the bacteria would go to the fleas, then go to the rats, and then bite, of course, the human, which will get the infection. It was shared experience among the medieval Europeans, and the plague probably began as an endemic and then is locally confined disease that once was established to perpetually present in a given area, then became a pandemic with the flea, rat, human that infected this disease way faster. Within the evidence of the plague was at least 50% or half the population had the disease. In Italian cities, it was 50 to 60%, Other France had 30 to 40%, Europe had 25 to 50%, and after the 1350s, nearly 2.5 million people were dead. So, if people went through 5 days of infection, people will actually have it for at least 5 days, and then that's it, they're dead. So the first day, people will see that they have swelling along their body, the armpits, the arms, the legs, the fingers, and they'll see kind of like buboes. That's what these things are called. They're kind of like splotches. It looks kind of like a bruise or like a burn. It has splotches all around the skin. And then sometimes it can get its size to an egg, or in some special cases, the size of a big apple. The second day is where we have like a fever. And people will start to vomit and develop a bad fever. And people thought it was like just like a regular sick day, but when in reality, it was actually them having the plague. On the third day, people will start bleeding under the skin and cause dark splotches all over the bodies, as also called buboes. As you can see here, it's all black. It's not like swelling, and it looks like kind of like a bruise. You know, when you bruise, kind of like the blood flows everywhere, but it turns black instead of purple or red. On the fourth day, the plague started to mess around with the nervous system, which causes people to start having spasms and causes a terrible amount of pain. And on the fifth day is where buboes burst, and a black liquid, kind of like a pimple, you know, when you squeeze it out and then stuff comes out like pus. The black liquid comes out and it causes a lot of pain, so people go through it. Most of the victims are suffering a painful death. People back then didn't really know about the germs. They didn't have much knowledge about like what's going on in the germs and how it can affect people. So they did what they could, try to prevent it and like keep away from people. And they didn't know that the plague was spread by rats or fleas and through the body were poisoned. And then so what they thought was just take the poison out of the body, but they didn't necessarily know where it was because it was affecting all over the body. So they just tried their best to like figure out the ways to like take out the poison. The different ways that in the medieval times, as I said, they didn't have as much technology as we did. So they tried different ways. For example, like they don't have technology, so the swelling was often softened with cooked onions. So they'll cook the onions and put it on the swelling parts, and apparently it would go away. And they'll mix the onions with yeast, butter, and the swellings, and put it on and open the swellings and put the onions inside of the part that's swelling. A lot of people thought that the plague, back then people were very religious, and they thought that the plague was a punishment from God, and that it happened because people weren't admitting to their mistakes. So they said if they admitted to their mistakes, they would not have the plague. They also thought the cure for it was to drink good wine. Since, you know, God turned from water to wine, they thought that would be a good way to cure it. Plague doctors. As we know, all plague doctors with their famous outfits with the top hat, all black, and the beak. There were different town surgeons and physicians, but they worked in a very secluded area. So they're away from all the town people, so that way, in case they were infected, it wouldn't spread to other people. And as I said, they were quarantined, and they wore this whole outfit, especially with the thick outfit, a lot of leather, so that way the infection couldn't go through to their skin. As there's black and white, and so they were just kept away from all the families. They were always by themselves. They never really went out with their families. And medieval treatments of what they thought back then would help with the plague, of curing the plague, was lancing, pigeon sucking on your blood, taking no naps, changed diets, burning wood, and carried roses to ward off the smell of like death. And these are my sources.